specific ones. The only one I'm on, I think, is Kubernetes, and that one just fills up too fast to keep track of. It's ridiculous. I made this mistake of watching their repo because I needed to learn more, and I thought,
Up your life.
I can't. This fire hose is too dangerous. Even the SIGs on here are hard to keep track of.
He was ahead of its time, and it's still does a pretty good job.
I don't know how they. I think they have a 10,000 limit as well. 10,000 mess as well. But
I'm sure it's why he's the project. Why
it's
it's
ridiculous. But they do nicely split it up for you.
But they kind of fell behind the time.
Yeah.
That's great where they should have.
Too much information. Yeah, I got 1, 2, 3,
So-
4 just for the
We're streaming now. I don't know if I get to edit it later or whatever. Or if, whatever I say.
I think you can edit it later. It's just
Now they know you were planning on it.
What's that?
now they know you're going to plan on it. They were
Or,
planning
yep,
on
your
it.
life confirmed from someone.
I think you can. I know in the Hangouts you can edit it. You can take it down immediately after it's
great.
Confirm where?
It's
a Casey. I just posted the link.
Oh, did you have the link from
Yeah.
when I messed up before?
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
All right, does anybody know anyone else that's coming?
live now. Right there it is.
Is this everybody? Awesome. I'm going to do a couple of announcements, and then we're going to get right into it with Chris. You guys can go through the beginning of your journey here at Sprint. Is that right? There it is. Awesome. Yeah. So we're live streaming tonight. We're going to see how that works. We're practicing for DevOps Days Kansas City, which will be October 20th and 21st. There's a couple of organizers in the room here. We're trying to get that all set up and going. We'll take more volunteers if people want to volunteer to help us out with that. It should be pretty awesome. If you want to follow us on Twitter, it's DevOpsKC. And if you want to get in the Slack room where we talk about this meetup and DevOps in general, just tap me on the shoulder tonight or send me an email through meetup.com and I'll get you added. I need your email address. That's really all I need. Maybe your first name and last name, or I can make one up for you and you can change it later on. That's fun. Does anybody have announcements of other meetups that people should be going to, or upcoming conferences, or jobs that they have, or anything like that they want to throw out there?
We got SecKC, which is a local security meetup. It's next Tuesday. Kansas Hall, which is like just down the road.
Yeah.
So it's going to be pretty awesome this week. They're going to do like an incident response training stuff, where basically they're going to have like 3 different scenarios. You bring in your laptop and go through, and then whoever figures it out, they'll talk about how they did it and stuff like that. So it'll be awesome this week.
Are they always the second Tuesday?
Second Tuesday of every month. Not the Wednesday like they used to
Not
be.
the Wednesday.
But
It's
yeah.
a running joke with SecKC. It's the second Tuesday.
Second
Like,
Tuesday.
you can't Wednesday get into their Slack and go, I missed it last night. Second Tuesday of every month.
Patch Tuesday.
Kansas City Developer Conference is coming up June 24th, 25th, and 26th, whichever is not Saturday, so it's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That's one. I don't know how many of you might be interested in that. I
Will
don't
you
know.
be speaking?
I am speaking.
Awesome.
I don't know how much DevOps is happening this year. There was a lot more DevOps in the last couple of years. This year doesn't seem to be as much, so it seems like the focus is moved a little bit back towards development. There's also Midwest I/O. Most people in here probably already know about that conference coming up in August.
There's cards over there for Midwest I/O. So if you want to get one of those, that's an awesome conference. It's going to be single track this year.
Yeah.
Last year was dual track.
Yeah, they got a good theme too, coping with chaos. I thought I had the perfect theme for that, Windows installers, but apparently not, so I'll just be attending now.
I'm going to hand it over to Chris, unless anybody had other announcements. No?
And what's the link for live stream?
The live stream, I tweeted it, so if you can get to Twitter.
You can also go to YouTube and go to the channel for DevOps KC.
Yep. I think
it's
the
sitting
link
there.
is there for on Twitter to get to the Google Plus page. But if you go to Twitter, DevOps KC, And I just tweeted the live link. It should have a delay. We tested it earlier, it was like, what, 12 seconds?
Yeah, 12,
So
15
I know
seconds.
everyone likes to swear, I can hit the dump button. I don't know how to do that. So.
It's adult only feed.
That's a good problem for me. Yeah? Because I don't know how to use the dump button?
Because I like to swear.
Oh, good. It's
It'll be on the internet for all to
It's a
see.
lot of practice.
Anyone else? Rock and roll.
Test.
Is that not on? You got the printing one? Let's see. So you can advance?
Test.
Sweet.
The power button is hidden way down in the back. Okay, I'm gonna talk to you guys briefly about one piece of a larger operation or project or implementation of DevOps at Sprint. It's kind of a company-wide effort. In our department, it's being led by Arthur Glass, who is not here right now. So hopefully he gets back and he can chime in with anything he wants to say. But I agreed to talk about what I do because I thought it was very pertinent to the greater discussion here about DevOps. If you're familiar with some of the big players out there, CA is one of them. I know HP does some stuff, and there's probably some other solutions, but particularly we work with CA, at least I do, and one of the things that I've been working on for the last 5 years is service virtualization or virtual services or stubs. When I tell people, I used to tell people what I do, they say, what do you do? I said, I work with Lisa Stubbs. They said, oh really, I don't know her, but tell me more about it. But Stubbs, it's a very basic way to say what it is that kind of what I'm doing, but it's a lot more elegant than that. Stubbs just seems so blunt. There's a lot more elegance to what it is that we're doing. So I'm gonna this is kind of the agenda. I'm gonna be quick because I know this is a very short discussion, so I'm gonna breeze through some of this stuff. But I'm just gonna walk you through a little bit chronologically of what we've done at Sprint. Tell you a little bit about the success. Everybody likes a good success story. Obviously I wouldn't be here if it wasn't successful. So one of the questions, going back to Stubbs, one of the questions I get are frequently is, what are virtual services? What is service virtualization? You know, the product that I primarily work with, let's get that out of the way, is called DevTest, and it's kind of an industry standard for service virtualization. And it used to be called Lisa, and if you guys are familiar with the company ITKO, they were bought out by CA 4 years ago. Anyways, they came up with this idea of really kind of taking stubbing to the next level. The problem is they really didn't think too hard on the acronym. Learn, integrate, simulate, and analyze, I think it is. Anyways, you kind of put that together and it comes up with a fun little name, Lisa, right? So virtualization, which you guys are probably all already aware of, this is kind of my definition. It's the act or art or the ability of providing a virtual, simulated, or faux service that acts like the original. Saves time, saves money, resources, sometimes called stubbing, but far, far more elegant. So what does the tool do? It provides a robust virtualized environment, which is called the VSE, Virtual Service Environment. And the tool creates virtualized services by capturing the responses from live services. So you can literally capture any type of application communication from TCP/IP, JDBC, anything in Java, anything in XML. It's actually the list of things that you can record, it grows each release. So one of the major benefits is it eliminates dependency on back-end systems or third-party systems. That's like a slam dunk, you know, when stuff's not available. Not gonna dig on anybody tonight, but Apple, did I say Apple? Okay. Anyways, what can it do for you? Reduce development and testing cycle times. You're not waiting on somebody else. You're taking matters into your own hand. So you're probably saying, well, that doesn't help me when I go to production, but at least you're not sitting there doing nothing. You're actually able to connect something to something and at least test your application's connectivity, which is kind of important. From a success story, in the beginning, we virtualized a lot of APIs for our mission critical applications, particularly a sales application here at Sprint. Lots of different types of payloads involved there. Initially, and these numbers are a little old, but that's okay. 400% improvement in defect removal effectiveness, and essentially, bottom line is we started testing code before the back-end systems were available. Passed a bunch of test cases, ahead of schedule, and no app defects were found in functional testing due to early defect identification. So, kind of from a release perspective, we were able to, we went out and we virtualized every API and just made those available. That didn't mean that the app had to test against it. It just increased that threshold of availability for when things were down, okay? For that particular app, we were able to virtualize HTTP and MQ without any problem. Kind of another gotcha here, 4 weeks testing, complete pass 1 of testing 4 weeks before the backends were up, okay? So the original scope of what we were trying to do was just very basic. We were just trying to virtualize downstream interfaces across all of our mission and business critical apps. You're like, okay, what are those? Those are your heavy hitter apps, all your .com apps, all your sales apps, a lot of the middleware apps that are involved in that infrastructure, as well as a series of external vendors. Excuse me. So, but we didn't limit ourselves. We opened ourselves up to network apps as well. We did do a proof of concept for a network app that was doing TCP/IP connections, and we started going through the recording process. And winds change in IT hourly, and they decided they didn't want to go with it, so that's fine. Scope would eventually be expanded to front-end testing as well, because one of the neat things about the app, and I'm not getting paid to say this, is it's not only a good virtualization app from a back-end perspective, it also has a test, kind of like a test director feature to it. So you can actually simulate front-end stuff really well. From functional testing to load performance. So it's actually very low overhead. So you can actually use it for performance testing. So how do we do that? What's our infrastructure? It's very simple. We got 2 development servers, 2 test servers, a couple of servers dedicated for one of our sales apps. And of course there's a desktop client that you run and allows you to connect to the systems. Those are all open systems. So what runs on those servers? It's just an app. It's called the VSE, Virtual Service Environment. And you can deploy to those using the workstation, or you can deploy to it using a browser. It's kind of neat. So if you see here, what are the gains? These dollar signs, everybody likes dollar signs, right? So by virtualizing things, you can eliminate some of your costs outright. Again, the question is, well, I'm not proving anything out against production. Well, do you have to? Do you always have to prove everything out all the time against production? That's the question. When you compare it to the fact that doing nothing, it's better to do something than to do nothing. And that's your other option, is you're covering your bases for when you're not able to do anything. And there's a fruit that comes in mind that frequently is not available. Anyways, so what's the process? It's really simple. The tool has a feature built into it to record your application connections. you take an existing normal operation, you insert the recording, you basically point your front-end app to Lisa and your back-end app to Lisa, and you can record the conversation. Then there's actually just a little button you click, and it instantly takes that information and virtualizes it, deploys it or I wouldn't say it self-deploys it, but it puts it. You can then deploy it to the virtual service environment and maintain that front-end connection to that back-end stub. Okay. I like this diagram. Unfortunately, I don't know if you can read it. It's taken right off the ITKO website. It's just kind of the benefits. It's really hard to capture benefits of an app or the benefits of using something, when things are working so well as they are. But I did like what they said on their website. Faster time to market by eliminating constraints in every phase of your project lifecycle. Speed, getting things done faster, not waiting for someone else. I mean, that's just what it is. Enabling parallel development, so you can use allows agile development to test teams to decouple from complex application architectures. Shift your quality left back towards dev. So it's just instead of letting everything flow all your issues and all your problems and all your expenses flow towards your production implementation, move things back to more ahead of the schedule, and when things don't cost so much, fix it early, right? This is fixing it late. One of the neat things that we did with this product is we actually developed a custom interface called Ad Hoc, and it's just a simple tool that allows us to interface directly with the virtual service environment. Because of licensing, we weren't able to just deploy the workstation to everybody out there. So what we did is we created a little tool that allows you to take just a simple request and response pair, plug it into this Ad Hoc tool, and then it deploys that to the virtual service environment. So it kind of gives the developer kind of a Lisa light access to this. It's a pretty small team. It doesn't take much, like I said. The goal is to simplify and to reduce the need for a bunch of people doing a bunch of things and controlling a bunch of systems and all that stuff. So I wanted to show you a little bit more about the architecture, but I didn't really have an architecture diagram that really, like I said, I like this guy, but it's just, you can get out there on the internet and find all kinds of cool architecture diagrams. You just look up service virtualization or CA Lisa, CA Dev Test, anything like that. The thing that I've liked most about the tool is when you do find something that's not available and you literally find out that it's going to cost you a lot of money to make it available, you just plug your app into this and you can instantly start testing again. So it's a nice stopgap solution. How does this spin into the DevOps discussion? Well, you take this tool and a couple other tools and the methodology, and voila, right? You instantly got DevOps, right? It's pretty complex. I don't have enough time to talk about it. There's other more qualified people to talk about it in the room, but I will say this, is that in terms of operating in an agile method, or in terms of focusing on time and money, it's just been a really great benefit for us. So, anybody have any questions? We have time for questions.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
You gave some of the benefits of quicker maybe coding and testing of that. What about and you showed less equipment that would have to be set up right
Mhm.
in that one diagram. But what's your cost of the Lisa VSE compared to all that other? So it's number wise it's less, but is it dollar wise?
Right. So-
Percentage wise, I mean, is it?
Okay, so
you're
let me give you
finding-
an example. I don't know how much of numbers I can get into.
Did it drop 100%?
Okay,
Cut
so-
your cost of 50% deploying a test environment over.
I think I can give you this example without any problems. So we have a vendor that's a very significant back-end vendor to us, and for this one particular environment, their costs were, let's say, $1 million, okay, and that was every year. And after you factor in the initial, like, I think the licensing that we set up with CA was, 60% of that the first year, and then like 40% of that every year after. So you're looking at 50% savings. So that's just one vendor. So if you had a bunch of in-house apps, maybe it's not, maybe you've got those costs under control. But if you've got a bunch of expensive systems or a bunch of expensive vendors, the savings get very significant very quickly. It also has, I'll say this, the neat thing about the CA site is it has a communities out there you can join and see how people are using it. And also they're working at making their services available through their website. So kind of like how we did ad hoc, it's funny, they like that idea and they're gonna spin it up to their website so that you can actually create your own services just using their website, kind of like a cloud service, if you will.
So the big question I have in this space, I haven't had the opportunity to play with any of these tools, is like how much do you have to train it about your special snowflake of an application or whatever, or is it pretty much like pick up on the wire pretty well, like what's crossing to give you this awesomeness? Or
So there's two approaches. I talked about the recording approach.
Uh-huh.
The Lisa automatically recognizes what's being sent. It's got that ability. So if you plug something in this way and plug something in that way, it instantly knows what's being transmitted. But if you send gobbledygook, it's going to say, this is gobbledygook. So you can push nonsense through it and it'll say nonsense. If you have a one-off application, the tool has a lot of, I wish I had time to show it to you, but it has a whole drop-down list of interface types that you can select from. It's massive. There's also custom things that you can load yourself. It allows for that. So it's very, very friendly to customization, very, very friendly to developing on the fly. The recording feature is basically automatic. But if you have an app that you know the interface really well, we use XML a lot, so we just know that up front and it handles that so well. So we did, anybody here familiar with Corba? Ever heard of Corba? It's almost like a joke. Hey, there we go. Anybody here program in Fortran? So we had an app out there that actually had a Corba interface that we were did a proof of concept for. And that's one thing that I stressed on my slides here. Any complex proposal that we've looked at is vetted using a proof of concept. We either could do it or we couldn't. And of course, when you call up a CA engineer, oh yeah, we can do anything. And I'm like, I'm not buying it. This interface is so old, So sure enough, after plugging away through it and working with one of their engineers back at headquarters, we were able to virtualize it. So you talk about it. That's like a 10 or 15-year-old protocol. So and it was frustrating as all get out to virtualize. Ultimately, it didn't make it down the road, but we passed our proof of concept. So
That's cool.
So when when the traffic for your services are encrypted, does it just basically man in the middle of that, or how do you get it to decrypt the traffic between the stuff, or if you're dealing with encrypted traffic that's going back and forth, how does it handle that?
We don't, our team, I say we're fortunate. I know everything we have is behind so many firewalls, we don't have to that's not an issue we have. I have talked about it. The older versions of Lisa just couldn't handle it. So we actually have an interface right now that we're trying to come up with a custom solution, and that's basically what, in the version that we're on right now, that's what we're gonna have to look at doing. There's a encrypted, I think they call it it's a payment service, and the requirement is that it's encrypted. And each time you do that, it's not something that you can record. You can't just record an encryption because they're unique every time, right? So anyways, I was told by the sales guys that the new version can handle encryption. However, it has to be set up exactly the way that you set it up on your app. So I'm just gonna say I don't have the success story yet.
Yeah.
So my thoughts were that we would have to point the app to somewhere else where the encryption was handled and then direct it back. I don't know, we haven't had to cross that bridge yet. So that's actually a very
I was just imagining, like, if you're simulating web services that you're making a call across a public network or something like that have to be encrypted. That would be a lot more exciting.
I think this is great for stuff that's behind a lot of firewalls. So you can see and I think that's why they're pushing forward with some of these technologies, because I mean that's basically where everything's headed. So. Okay. Good. All right. I'm going to hand it off to Rob.
No way that we can turn down the light just a hair?
Turn down the light.
Test. Sweet. Thank you. People go to sleep if it's this far.
Too romantic.
Too much. Just a little bit more moonlight.
Will that do, or?
What do you guys think? A little bit more light out there?
More light.
Yeah.
Was the live stream look like?
Oh, well, we can work with that.
Over like.
My password was star.
I might bring
No, they're on.
It's not 102?
It is 102.
It's all or nothing?
It's all or nothing.
Well,
Oh, no worries.
That's all right, it's bright enough.
Oh, there you
How's that?
That's
Hey.
Better now?
Yeah.
There now.
go. You been here before?
No.
Oh, just smarter than me.
I like pushing buttons.
I see.
I've tested software in the past. Hey, what does this do?
I forgot my clicker, so I'm gonna bounce back and forth a bit here. All right, so show of hands, how many people in here have used Chocolatey in the past? How many people have used it in production? All right, so I have a pro license for you. That's your only one. Didn't have to go further. All right, so my name is Rob. I work for Puppet, making Windows more awesome. And I also created Chocolatey about 5 years ago. And I have over 10 years experience in infrastructure automation. So, Chocolatey. How many people here don't know what Chocolatey is? Fantastic. How many people just thought it was like food? Yeah. I don't have any chocolate, but there is some chocolate over there, courtesy of Pizza Hut. So Chocolatey is basically software management. So it manages the entire software management lifecycle. It does that through being a package manager. For people that don't know what package managers are, that is the ability to install, upgrade, and uninstall software through the command line, through other interfaces, but you're not tied to particular things like SCCM or that kind of stuff. I'll just put this up here for a second. A friend of mine named Derek works for Walmart. It's one of my favorite quotes about drop jobs and automatically deploying applications. So, like I said, 5 years, and in that time we built quite a community. There's developers on one end, there's system administrators on the other end. Everybody finds their own use of Chocolatey. The documentation is passable, and I think that's probably helped kind of foster a community when there's actually good documentation on open source. Because how many projects have we ever come across where the documentation is not that great? So it's like, hey, you want to know how to do this? Go read the source code. It's not very helpful. And friendly attitudes. I know that in some communities, there's not really friendly attitudes, but we try to maintain a very friendly attitude in the Chocolatey community. And of course, I'm obsessed with user experience, so I like the user experience to be good, sometimes eclipsing having really shiny features. So let's step back. So in Windows, does anybody know how many, or have an idea of what that number is? There's over 20 different installer formats. Can anybody name more than 5? Yeah.
MSI.
MSI, Install Shield, I got 2.
Install Shield, MSI, or Windows Installer.
Nullsoft.
Nullsoft, NSIS, InnoSetup, BitRock. I'm going to start filling. So there's a 7-zip installer, there's a WinRAR installer. Yeah, there's some crazy installers out there. But couple that with all of the zips and other archive formats like gzip and tar and all that, and you can kind of see how it becomes the Wild West. And so enter Chocolatey. Chocolatey is a single unifying interface that just sits right up on top of that chaos and gives you this really nice interface. And it's decentralized, so while there is a community feed, most organizations don't use this community feed. What they do is they have their own internal repository where they put their packages. And it's secure, so it's been growing, a little bit more secure as we go. When we got to, so has anybody in here used the older version of Chocolatey when it was written completely in PowerShell?
I used the word.
Oh yeah, so you know when it was total crap, so now it's not so bad. And so in the C# we have a lot more security in the compiled app, and we're actually, as we move into 9.10, we've actually added more security features, so all of the PowerShell scripts are now signed, and the binaries are signed and everything's signed, so so there's that. We tend to get security CVEs every once in a while from different companies that will reach out, and we fix those pretty quickly. So there's an automatic uninstaller. That has been in the 0.9.9 series. The 0.9.10 series is getting ready to release. It's actually, I got like 5 features left, and it's done. So I'm really excited about that. But the automated uninstaller. So you install something, Chocolatey already knows how to uninstall it. And this isn't about 90% of the cases. And it does that through tracking, as the app gets installed, so that it kind of wraps that and watches what happens to the system. It's able to say, hey, I saw this particular uninstaller key, and so I know that that belongs to this. I saw that this thing also did something with paths, so I know that you need to refresh your environment, so I'll tell you to either close and reopen or not. And another thing is that shimming executables, and so one thing that Chocolatey does really well is if you just have an application, a .NET application or whatever, and you have executables in there, you just drop them into a package, zip it up, and it'll automatically put those executables on the path for you without cluttering up your path. So packaging becomes super simple. And anybody not familiar with NuGet? Everybody's familiar with it? Everybody knows what it is?
I'll say no.
Okay. NuGet is the Microsoft .NET, and I think C# now, package manager. So It's the one that will bring all of the software DLLs and libraries so that you can create applications that you then turn and release on Chocolatey. And of course PowerShell. Everybody loves PowerShell here, right? Super verbose, super awesome. Right. So a Chocolatey package, like I said, it's kind of a glorified zip file. With that, it knows about versioning, it knows how to do dependency management, and of course PowerShell. I'll show you in a minute the metadata that goes along with that. It's an XML file, I'm sorry, that's part of the NuGet packaging framework. And then we have over 30 built-in functions into Chocolatey. We actually have 40, but we've deprecated 3, so I can't say over 40. But really it's about taking these tasks of figuring out how to install or add something to path and making it one line. And you depend on those and you continue to get fixes and more features as they're available. So a lot of times you'll run into an installer that doesn't actually take the binaries and put them on the path, and you want them on the path. And when you use Chocolatey, you can actually add that additional logic into the script. And so that's nice. The other thing is adding the missing options. And so when you're using like a graphical installer, I'm going to use Git because it's a great one. So you're going through it, you're able to like select some things. There's no silent arguments for those things. And so there's no way to get them. And so being able to use package parameters and seeing what it does to actually set things, you can preset those things so it'll actually pick the right options as it goes through. Of course, drop-in binaries. So this is that XML, I'm sorry. It's very tiny on the screen. So NuGet has a new spec file, and that's what this is here. And this kind of talks about the metadata description of not only just the software, but also the package. And so one of those things that keys off for the package is this ID and this version. A lot of times you want those to actually match up with the software because it just makes sense, but they don't have to. And then a lot of the rest of the stuff is about information. And when you come down to this one section, you tell it what kind of files you're actually going to put in this package as you embed it. A lot of times we just say, hey, that's in the tools folder, and you just take everything in there. Now we've enhanced this with more software information, and we're going to continue to enhance it. So another thing that we've done is we've added provides, conflicts, and replaces. They don't do anything yet, but if you're familiar with other package managers, provides is for virtuals. So you can say, hey, this provides PDF. And so when anybody's looking for a PDF reader, and you can put a dependency on a virtual package, something that doesn't actually exist, and it'll look to see if you already have something installed on your machine. And if you do, good to go. If not, it's going to select one from a list. And conflicts and replaces are management. Let's say I have JRE7 and I go to install JRE8. Probably uninstall JRE7. That's what conflicts is about. And then one of the things with further enhancements, what we're doing is like OS versions that are supported. So when you say I want to work on Windows, like the client side, so like Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10, don't stand there. But I don't work on the server versions. And so being able to say in the package, the metadata of what versions of Windows I support versus having to actually do it as functionality in the packaging in the install script makes it a lot better. So then you can actually do queries based on what does this work on. So that'll be really nice when that's available. So the community package repository. There's a couple of packages out there. I'll go off the number. There's over 4,000 unique packages. So there's 4,000 different things and 23,000 versions of those things. The community feed has been up for almost 4.5 years, and it's really skyrocketed since we turned on moderation back in October 2014. We went up by like 19 million downloads, so or more than that. I don't know exactly the number, but I took this picture today, so it's about 40 million downloads today. The reason I bring this up is also to bring up that organizations that are using Chocolatey that are trusting it for production use should never use the community repository because At which point you do that, you're depending on volunteers and community folks, and because a lot of these packages are subject to distribution rights and copyright laws, they actually have to reach out to the internet further to download something and pull it down. And so you introduce multiple breaking points, and yeah, that's not something you want to put a lot of trust in.
You said moderation? You added moderation?
Moderation, so every single package that goes up gets checked by a human.
Okay.
And say it's not this number of 4,000, it's this 23,000. There was some existing ones before that. If you go to chocolatey.org/stats, we have a whole ton of stats of things that we keep track of, and you'll find how many we've actually manually reviewed and improved. We also have this concept of trusted packages, and so if the software vendor is also the maintainer of the package, that's pretty much a slam dunk. That's their stuff. So we checksum everything that goes up there, and we do virus total scans on everything that goes up there. So yeah, there's a lot of security stuff that's there now, but there's a lot of security stuff that's still to be done, especially since, like I said, we can check what's here and we can check what it downloads at the time of moderation, but we can't check what it's going to download at a later point in time. So there's a few things out there that you can use to host your own feed. Artifactory, I think, is the only one on this list that may not be free. MyGet is free as long as you have a public one. And then you want to go private, it's not free. ProGet, I think, is similar. It's free for the first one or two. I don't know how many servers you put up. If you're using Puppet, then you can use the Chocolatey server module, which is the Chocolatey server. And it's a ready-to-rock website that we'll just set up. And it's what we like to call the simple feed. So you get HTTP OData feeds. So these are NuGet OData feeds. And all of these are simple servers, except for the NuGet gallery. The NuGet gallery is one that has basically what you would consider as RBAC, or access control, different users, all of that fun stuff. Where the rest of them are simple. It's one person can push, or anybody that has that key can push, and everybody else either has the same user password in front of it, or it's open for all. I should have asked how many people are doing the internal hosting. I guess that would be you if you're doing it.
Well, it's in process.
Right on. These are, so there's simple, and then there's the gallery, but then there's also, you can just put up a CIF share, so you just put up a UNC, and you can host your packages that way. How many people use Chef or Puppet, SaltStack, PowerShell DSC? Does anybody use SCCM? Everybody in the room? Nobody wants to admit it. All right, so creating packages is generally easy, and we're going to jump into examples really quickly here. It's basically this one command, choco new, and it allows you to generate files. It generates all of the packaging files from the templates. There's a built-in template, but if you don't like using that, or you want to create your own, say if you're always setting up MSIs, or doing a lot with NSIS, and you know what you're doing there, you can create your own packaging templates. And I actually have an example of that, maybe. All right, I'm starting that one because the business edition. So one thing I hear from folks is that packaging it tends to be the most difficult aspect of using Chocolatey. I have to go figure out this installer, I have to figure out information about it, I have to figure out that maybe it's nullsoft, maybe it's install shield, or maybe it's whatever, and then I have to figure out what all the arguments are. And Chocolatey for Business, you say, you know what, Chocolatey? You just figure it all out. I'm going to point you to that file, wrap an entire package around. And then so the next one is being able to take these existing packages up on chocolatey.org and say, I want to bring them down, but I don't want to use the internet then with the package. I want to actually bring all of the resources that it downloads down, put it all in the package, and recompile it so that I have local resources. I don't do that automatically, so I just want it to be able to run one command and have it happen. We call that recompile support. So these are all the fun things that are coming out in 0910. Like I said, there's about 5 issues left, maybe, unless I decide to punt one of them to the next version. So PowerShell internal host, that's really important because read host support with the timeout. So you can do read host and it'll time out in 30 seconds. So you can still use read host and be completely automated. So when you don't have somebody there, you have a default answer. Or you can't do that if you're running system PowerShell. Tab completion support. So if you're in PowerShell, now you can just choco tab and install tab and get a nice list of like packages and switches and it's all this fun stuff. Alternative sources are back. So people in the 9 to 8 days remember that you were able to do like minus source Windows feature, minus source Ruby, and minus source Sigma, and be able to install packages that way. All that stuff is back in 9.10. This next one is slightly big, is being able to say, you know what, so it's always a pain for folks on Windows to say, hey, I installed something, the path changed, guess what? Close your shell, restart that. Close your shell, restart that bad boy, right? And what you'd rather do is just have some way of actually just, why don't you just update all the environment variables so I don't have to close everything? And that's what refresh M does. And that's existed in command for a while, but now we brought it to PowerShell. So it's there for PowerShell, it's there for Chocolate, he does it internally, and of course then on the command line you're able to do that. You've been able to do that for a while. The before modify is pretty important as well. I mean, if you have like services you need to shut down or other things as you go to upgrade packages or uninstall packages, this particular script will be run before it does anything else. And so this will happen, I said before upgrade and before uninstall. And then sometimes if you interrupt an install after it's already downloaded the package, it thinks it's installed, not anymore in 9.10, it will actually say, hey, no, that's pending, so then it kicks it out. And exit codes, so if you have something that needs to reboot, Chocolatey is now good at telling you that, hey, this thing has indicated that a reboot is necessary. It actually exits with the right codes. And so that things like Puppet, Chef, and all that can take advantage of that and be able to then call whatever they need so they could actually execute a reboot on system if necessary. Yeah. 9.10 I've been working on since 9.9 came out, which was March of last year, off and on. 6 months, pretty much hardcore on getting this particular release out. So other things in the business edition, runtime malware protection. So you hook up your virus scanner, what you have installed, and Chocolate will get that double check where it actually will run your virus scanner and make sure that the thing that it brought down to the system is okay, that it's safe. Is there anybody in here that says, I like to install things, but I don't like them to go to programs and features or program files or whatever, and I want to put them in like other locations? Yeah. And figuring out how to do that with silent installers is a bit insane. With Chocolatey for Business, it's a breeze. You just say minus install dir, and Chocolatey figures it out, passes the right arguments to the underlying installer. Synchronize with programs and features is kind of big. So Chocolatey maintains its own state of the world, and then you have the installer. So in programs and features, you have the state of the world. If somebody comes in and like manually uninstalls something, Chocolatey doesn't know what happened. Or like Google Chrome, which is famous for saying, auto update like all the time, like a jackrabbit. And so Chocolatey with Synchronize, it's able to keep those states in sync. And so if it's uninstalled, it removes it. We already talked about the other two. And then, there's also the Pro version, which is for individuals. It gives you use on up to 5 machines, so you can use it at work as long as it's your own machine and not for like production use. Very similar to the same features that you get on the other side. The only difference is the virus runtime malware stuff is virus total. And so what you're getting there is like 50, 60 scanners, which is super nice. It gives you that second check to your already installed virus scanner. And then of course, a CDN cache, because every once in a while these things that has to reach out and download will disappear, or there's a network blip and they go away, and being able to have something for our customers that allows them to have those things still work even when they 404 somewhere. So we call that feature the no more 404s. All right, so touching on these really quickly before we get into code. I love UX, and I think UX can continually get smoother. So one of the things that I keep hearing is, Chocolatey's great, but I don't know where stuff installs. So it's always a guessing game. Did it install in the package directory? Did it install a native installer? Did it install somewhere else? And so being able to have more of a user experience around notification about where things went would be great. Package signing is about traceability, and being able to say, Puppet created this package, but now I can trace it back because it has a PGP signature. So I can trace it back to somebody, and that will be a really nice security enhancement. And we already talked about the other. Has anybody here heard of OneGet? PowerShell package management? All right, so Microsoft has a built-in package manager aggregator. Yes, aggregator. And it's called PowerShell package management. It comes with PowerShell Get and I think a couple of other things actually installed with it. And Chocolatey also has a provider. The official one isn't actually released yet. And so that's coming soon. It's coming in the next couple of months. And so that when you're on Windows 10 or Windows Server 2016, you can be install -package in PowerShell, and you can choose the provider for Chocolatey, and it'll use that interface instead. Everybody here has heard of Nano? Right? Windows Nano? So Windows Nano is a stripped-down version of Windows, and they ripped out like MSI. They ripped out a ton of stuff. So it's got like if you go back and you think like I remember like Windows XP had like the base memory is 384 like K or meg or something like that. It's like super tiny. That's the entire Nano operating system. There's enough you can put it on a drive. It's tiny. With Pro, one of the big things that people really want is they have some people who support a lot of folks that are non-admins. They want to give them a way to do self-service installation, and so that's one of the big things that we want to bring out. All right, I'm going to shut this down. If you're interested in announcements or anything like that, you can join the newsletter. There's a link at the bottom of chocolatey.org. And of course, I'm Fervent Coder, so if you can find me on Twitter, GitHub, Pinterest maybe, I don't know. Probably not there. All right, so here I have it again, and we have no Choco installed. What else do I have? There we go. Can everybody see this okay? Sweet. I might bump it up just a hair. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to kick this guy off so that we can start setting up Chocolatey and a couple of other things. We're actually going to run Puppet to do this. Like I said, it integrates with Chef and all the other. Shelf has a built-in Chocolatey package resource, so that's pretty nice. This color scheme right here does not work well if I do that, so I'll try not to do that. Here we're just saying we'd like to install Chocolatey. We're doing it from a local file, so we have no internet hits whatsoever in this entire demo. So everything we're doing is completely right here. And we're going to create a server. And so we're going to set up a custom server in our Vagrant file. A lot of people here ever see Vagrant? This is your first time? Vagrant's a sandbox environment, super awesome. We are taking the port of 80 and we're going to forward it out so we can actually see it over here. So now it's already set up by IIS, so it's already moved that quick, which means that like Chocolatey and a whole bunch of other things have already been installed. Yeah. So, got web server set up. Probably installing some packages right now. Windows. Windows is powerful. This is actually, it's setting up the Chocolatey server module, which it sets up rights and user permissions on a particular directory, so it's making sure that the ACLs are all set appropriately. And it kills off the default website, it puts this website in, sets an app pool, it does all that in like 30 lines of Puppet code, which that sounds pretty cool. And it does this all in about 90 seconds. So in a minute and a half, you could install IIS, set up a website, get everything installed. Pretty cool. Let's rerun this guy. So now I have a package repository. If we click to view our packages, you can see we don't have anything yet. So we're going to push some stuff up there. In here, we'll be able to start a new PowerShell.
So does it support only Windows or any operating system?
What's that?
It supports only Windows?
Chocolatey supports Windows. It does not support other operating systems. Other operating systems like Debian already have the package and apt. And Ubuntu, of course, also falls into that. And then in the RHEL system, you already got Yum. And now DNF, which is what's coming out as a new thing for it. Yum, all that stuff built up on top of RPM stuff. Yeah, there's not really necessarily a need on other operating systems, and so Windows is kind of in the stepchild of the family for a while. So having a package manager is really nice. All right. Sweet. Even that didn't work. I killed off something and I forgot. Okay, set X.
You didn't make the proper sacrifice to live demo guides.
Every single time. It works right up until demo time. It's like, nope. Nope, sorry, buddy. Right, so I just want to. Oh, X1 maybe. Okay. Try again. And there it is. All right, so we already have a couple of things installed here. So if we just called list our local items, you can see, maybe, yeah. So we have our beta installed, we have an extension, the server, .NET, and a couple of other things. One of those things we actually said, actually two of those things we said we wanted over here. So we're just saying, hey, I want this installed, I want this installed. So let's say a directory, we'll call it packages. So then we'll jump in that packages directory. And then so what I was saying about creating packages, so we can do Choco new, and then oops, a tab completion support, which is real nice. All the different things that I can pass to this particular thing. But you know, I really just want to create Bob. And so you see it auto-generated a whole bunch of files for me. So if I go, yeah, I want to go into Bob, how about just Bob? And then let's just say, open this folder, and we'll take a look at the README here. And so I get this nice tiny words. It kind of talks to me about how to create packages, points me to documentation, gives me a whole bunch of things that I can use. As far back as I need to support, as far as Chocolatey, so if I have to go all the way back to like 0.90 something, then it's going to tell me how I can support that. And then the new spec, which is, again, the lovely XML, I'm sorry. But information about, this is a new spec, gives you a lot of information to help you fill it out. A lot of times people struggle with how do I set up versions, and so there's already a few different ways here, and it kind of explains defines what they are. So this is really nice for leading people down the right path. And then that before modify file. So the thing about the before modify, it comes from the old package and not the new package. So if it fails, that's okay. It just continues on. There's the install script, and it has a whole bunch of things already here. And it points out the documentation. Documentation is pretty good, so give that a read. And then of course the uninstall, which if you're using the auto uninstaller, 80 to 90% of the time you're not even going to need this because it already knows how to uninstall it. And then a couple of other files that you can get rid of. And so, well, that's okay.
So the new spec file,
Mhm.
would you liken that to anything in like apt or yum or in those ecosystems, or is it completely just an idea that's like Windows centric? Would it be like a make file or like?
It would be sort of like the make file, but there's probably a file in there that talks about like here's the piece of software, here's how it provides. I'm trying to think of the W file what that is.
Like the RPM manifest?
Like the manifest file? Well, no,
So this is the manifest.
Okay.
Basically.
Fair enough.
And so I was like, this is Bob, and I need version 1.0, right? That's, I think, all I have to actually edit on this particular file, and then I can build it. Actually, not anything other than the ability to type. I do need that. So I've created a compiled new spec, and so it's taken all those files and it's zipped them up, and I have a package. It doesn't do anything, but I have a package. So that was interesting, but why don't I take this guy and why don't we drop that into the license folder here. Then we can take a look at something a little bit more interesting. Say I have a few files. If I can find the right path, then we'll be doing pretty good here. So, okay. So this is a bit tiny, but I have one password, get, node, stackify, prefix, and Baker. And I want to take these things and I actually want to create packages out of them. Doing MSI is really isn't that hard, but some of this other stuff I really don't even know what it is. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say, you know what, Chocolate, like I said, you're pretty smart. You know how to figure this stuff out. Just go figure out what that installer is, wrap it with an entire package for me, and do your thing. So I can just say chocolate new, point it to a file, and let it go. And so hopefully out of the end of this, basically I get a bunch of packages that I can then take and put onto a system and use. And then when I have updates, I can just do the same. So if we just jump over to that directory, create packages, okay. I do that and then I realize that this is a batch file. Oh, I just click it. All right, and so what you're seeing here is it's actually going through and the text is tiny, but it's creating all the packages. So it's looking at it, it's determining what it is. It's actually wrapping a new spec, it's wrapping like the chocolatey install files and everything around these particular things.
This is the business edition, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I refresh, here I have those new packages. And you see this particular new package is, oh, it's a little big. So if we go and look at it, and so what it's done is it's looked at one password. Let's look at this file here. It's determined that the version of it is this particular version, so it's already figured out the versioning. It's already figured out, who's the author. It's already figured out the copyright. So it's done pretty much all it needs to do inside of this file for me. Because organization, I don't care about descriptions and all of that stuff as much. I mean, it's important, but what I need to know is like, this is one password, right? And this is this version. And as long as those two things are good, then knowing what the rest of it is only so important. But so you see here, it's already said, hey, I figured out this is Inno setup.
And so here's all the silent arguments that go with it. And then I have this file, so if I have to do anything with it, and if you remember the other file we looked at was like ginormous, like amount of stuff. This is like, here's just all the stuff you need. It's really nicely formatted. It's done everything for you. Like, so if we pull up another one here and take a look at here real quick, let's say the Stackify prefix guy here. And if these silent arguments are wrong for the install shield MSI, then my bad. It'll get fixed by the time it releases. Because I looked at it, I was like, that's kind of interesting. I wouldn't have thought, the double V. But all right. So it's figured out how it gets installed. It's figured out how to pass all the silent arguments to it that are the default silent arguments. So if you wanted to add more for your particular organization, then you can. And because you're able to take advantage of that install directory switch, you can tell it, no, I want you to install over here. So let's take.
So those executables you pointed at, are those the installation programs, or are those the actual? Can you just point it at like a runtime program and have it do this?
No,
or
this is for installers. So
it has to be installers. Okay.
If you're doing it for like a runtime program, you just literally take the runtime program and drop it into the package, and then create the new spec, and that's all you need.
Fair enough.
And it'll put it on the path for you automatically. But if we were to take a look at one of these guys, open archive. Oh, I'm on the wrong file. Okay. And you can see that we have in our package, it's already dropped in the binary here.
Sweet.
So we have the binary, we have the installer, everything's sweet. Some of these can get a little big, so we recommend right around 100 meg you start thinking about where you're going to put that installer, because it's probably a little too big to go inside the package. Now, there are people out there that are putting SQL Server into a new package and it's 2.3 gig, and they're using Nexus, and apparently Nexus can handle this. So Nexus and Chocolatey can install it. It's just one of the reasons we need to move up to NuGet v3 is it doesn't do so well in getting it up there to the server. But once it's there, Chocolatey can install it, no problem. Well, I mean, it's 2.3 gigs, so I mean, you gotta wait for the thing to come down. But you gotta wait for that anyway. You gotta take that hit somewhere.
If you package something that asks you a bunch of questions during the installer, does this go through and bring up prompts to where you can set up a default install?
No, you're thinking of something like change base and all that other fun?
Git.
Yeah.
When you install Git the first time on a Windows system, there's probably, what, six
Yeah,
dialogues?
There's 6 dialogues. What Chocolatey does is it focuses more on the silent install. So something like Git is where you want to use like the recompile so that you'll pull down the existing package. It's already figured all that stuff out. Where this is going to look at Git, it's going to give you all the default silent arguments that you can pass to it. And so then if you need to tinker or get a little bit more, so actually Git was one of them. So if we look at it, right, so it's got the default silent arguments that go with Inno setup.
So what you were saying is that you could pull down a community version and steal their silent args out of that one, so you don't have to figure out what they are. Is that what you
Right.
were saying?
And so if we were to say, I'm going to go look at git install, and keep in mind this package here has a lot of stuff because it takes those package parameters. Like I said, there are no silent arguments for some of the options that you get in the graphical installer, and being able to do that in a package makes it like one of the only places that you can get a silent install that actually does everything. And it does that saying, you're going to pass package print. Wow, this is really bad on here. Hold on. That's a little better. Of course, you can't see the whole thing now. Right, so here's like the thing about like the community packages that has URLs that have to go download, and then it takes in package parameters. And then if you say I want to have like the Git and the Unix tools on the path, so I want to get SSH and I want to get git.exe on the path, what you'll be passing is this parameter, and it'll actually set that. And what it does is then it reaches out, creates the registry key, because that's how the installer has the remembered properties. So when it does the upgrade, it remembers what it's set, and this just presets them. And so then when the installer runs, it goes, oh, remember properties. for the necessity. That's pretty interesting. All right.
Does it do things with like, I think I've just started learning about MSI transforms and whatnot, so you can apply a transform to an MSI and package that up, or?
It can do probably the package you get out of it, but actually doing the apply of the MSC transform is PowerShell will probably do that. Chocolate is very much that when you have the package ready, or like that installer ready, then it can do something with that. But the process of getting to that point, unless you're just going to drop binaries into the package, then it can, you can deal with that and just kind of like, forget about all that installer technology. That stuff is crazy. All right, so I have one package here, one password, and I want to take one password and install it. So let's go over here to packages. I probably have a pre-cached copy, but we'll just drop this in on top of it. All right.
That could be a SIF share or something else.
So this could be a file folder share, it could be a SIF share, it can be an OData HTTP feed. The thing about bare HTTP, we don't support that yet, but we're working towards it. So you can have a bare index and be able to just point and it'll say, oh, I see a package up there with that name, so I'm able to pull it down and install it. But not yet. So another one that that could get really interesting is being able to do an approach like Homebrew, where you just have a whole bunch of new specs sitting on a Git repository, and you say, I'd like to tap that repository. Maybe not tap, because that's a little brewy, but and then be able to actually have it build those and install it at runtime. And so here I've said I want to install one password. Of course, once I've passed that, so okay. So I want to change the directory here. So I know this is bad. We would never install things to just the root of C, but hey, let's do it just for effect. And so keep in mind, I don't remember what it is that you would actually pass one password, but I don't have to care anymore because Chocolatey can figure it out for me. And so what Chocolatey will say is, oh, okay, so this is one of those secure by default things. One of the things that Chocolatey will do when it's not being run as a script where you have pass -y is you'll get prompts. And so it's going to ask you if you want to run the script, if you want to take a look at it. Hey, let's just show me the script. Oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. Right, and so I get that, and then I can choose whether I want to run it or not. And if I decide that, no, this is dangerous, and I don't think I want to do that, so like if I'm using a community feed, then I can say no. In this case, sure. All right, so keep in mind, one of the things it said to me is, hey, I figured out what that option was, and I passed it. And so it has said I'm going to install it to the C drive. And so if we pull up the C drive here, you can see that we have one password now installed here. And we take a look in here. One password is installed. And so if you remember, one of the things that I stated, okay, so we do our Choco lists, and we look at our local packages. One password shows up in our list here. All right, so what happens if somebody comes along and just uninstalls it manually? And so they go and they say, you know what, one password's not really supposed to be installed on my machine. I don't like that. And then Choco is out of sync, right? But not in the business edition. In the business edition, it goes, hey, you know what? That application got removed, so the package is gone. And so if you're doing configuration management, you now know that's called configuration drift. So you said, hey, I want to have one password installed. Somebody has done something outside, and I'm able to actually auto-correct that. And so if I come back over here and I say, hey, you know what? I want to have one password installed, and I want it to be at this directory. So then I come back in and I rerun, and it provisions, and And every 30 minutes I get a nice guarantee if I'm using Puppet, and I think Chef's is similar. Every 30 minutes you get that correction of configuration drift. So that when somebody does something that you didn't want them to do, and you're a system administrator and you want to correct that drift and put things back, and so it's just going to make sure that one password doesn't get uninstalled. Slowly but surely. If we actually look at this particular package that we created, I want to show you something here. You'll notice that we don't have any before modify, we don't have any chocolatey uninstall. So when that particular thing gets installed on the machine, we're trusting that the Audubon installer service is actually working appropriately, so that when we say, you know what, change my mind, I don't think that should be installed anymore. And it'll come through and it'll actually say, stinky. All right, so then we get that it was removed, and now we have no one password installed. So the one I can't show you tonight is the automatic recompile support. I would love to, but it's not quite done. So unfortunately, it's kind of a big one. A couple steps involved. Oh, I forgot to show you the templates. So we can do that real quick, and then we can go into questions, or if anybody has any questions they want to shout out, go for it. All right. Let's say for my MSI here, we'll take this one. We'll go create as a template. No, I got one here. Actually, we just cheat and copy that guy. Copy. So Chaco new. So I got template name. That's one of my options here. So that template we called organization. No autocomplete on that, unfortunately. And then I want to call this Bill. I just created a C. So a C, we should have Bill. And you can see that Bill has a very much smaller template, right? And so it's based on what I've defined inside of my company. I said this is what I want to be. And this has got a very small amount of stuff. I didn't actually do a replacement on some of the stuff that I could have. And so I have this template. So pretty crazy, right? Pretty wild. More questions? Any questions? Ready to go from Pizza Hut? All right. Thank you.
So I have questions. Mine are more around the community. So you've over the course of like 5 years, you've created something for Windows very similar to Yum or apt-get, but also like all of these other pieces that come along with that. Like there's a repository piece and stuff like that. How have you managed to keep it positive? Because you've got a lot of people out there that want, in and out of this or whatever, and it has been a very positive community.
Mhm.
Like what things do you do to try to steer things back to positivity and stuff?
So of course, every community ends up with trolls and
Yeah.
other things. What you tend to do is you find ways to, we just kill it with kindness in most cases that's worked. Every once in a while, when the trolls are hard, we just have to ignore them or ban them from things. But honestly, we haven't seen a lot of that. What we've seen more is people that are just very demanding, about things when they're using community resources. And we post our etiquette thing that we expect as far as etiquette goes, and anybody that doesn't fall into that, they get the warning, and then.
So have the rules defined so you can always be like, okay, look over here.
So we try to be as defined our etiquette. I don't know if it's up on our docs here, so I don't know if you go to docs you can find it, but if you go over to Chaco itself, we have our etiquette here, and then we really need to kind of adopt that code of conduct thing. This is basically our code of conduct right now. And then, there's a lot of things that go into running package management. It's not I like to say it's not one of those sexy things, and so it's probably why there hasn't been one. And it's not fun a lot of the time. There's a lot of thanklessness about it, but having something that can do what it does. When there wasn't something there that really did a good job of that before, it's pretty cool.
Pretty awesome. Wow.
Took a few years, and some of it was building up on top of the NuGet framework, and so that was handy. And so it was a really nice ability to say, I'm experimenting PowerShell, and I'm going to focus on UX. And then when it came down to we need performance, we need a little bit more around security, we need all of these things. It was time to get a little bit more serious and say, we need to move into a language that I know well and can provide all those things. And people were like, why didn't you write it in Go? And I was like, well, I already experimented writing something in a language, writing production code in a language that I didn't know very well. So that's kind of the process, and now we have something that is a hybrid. So it's PowerShell, it has PowerShell stuff in it, and it's also C#, and everything is pretty well defined on where those things end up. So I mentioned docs, and I didn't really get into so any of these particular things we have. Stuff showing here's how you configure it, here's how you see it in action, here's the options and switches that go along with it, FAQs, so really a deep dive into something like runtime malware protection. I didn't actually show that off, but using the virus total, you have a certain number of scanners that are super aggressive, and so we set the positives at 5, and we let folks ratchet that up or down. And if it triggers over that, then it won't run it. It just kind of goes through this particular feature when it comes into what are all the options I can pass to install. And people joke that the number gets to be a little bit longer every single time we have a release. This is just going into alternatives. So here's all the different options that you can pass. And I always joke that sometimes I fat finger things, so it's good to have that same option be called all kinds of things. Right? Skip scripts, there's a skip dash scripts, or is it skip dash automation dash? I don't know. All of them work. And so there's a ton of things that you can pass, like that install directory. I couldn't remember which one it was. Well, it's all of them. So just pass whichever one you want. The really nice thing about what you're seeing here is this is actually autodoc. So everything you see here when you run Chaco install -h, you get all that stuff printed out. So you can see it in the command line. That's actually what creates this file. And it's the same for all the PowerShell scripts now as well. So if I was to say, I want to look at install chocolatey package, this is all generated off of the PowerShell file. And so I get a description and examples, all of this stuff is generated. And of course, a nice sort of MSDN looking like documentation here.
Is it generated Markdown or was it generated?
This is it generates Markdown
Okay.
off of it, and then we use Pandoc to bring it back to HTML. So this goes, so it, yes, almost a Rube Goldberg type thing, right? So out of the Choco code base, it generates it. That goes into the wiki. So here on like chocolatey, like this is this is helpers install chocolatey package. So if I jump over here and I go into the wiki and I drop into that particular helper, and when it decides to actually look at it. So this is what it looks like in on the wiki, and then this same thing comes from the wiki and onto the site. So it's kind of like pick what looks the best for you and use that one. So if you like it in this format, that's good. If you like it in this format, that's good too. This is actually maybe a little too big to see here, but yeah. So yeah, Autodoc was a lot of work. And it's still got a couple of things that are a little wonky that I fixed recently, but I think it's coming along really well, and it makes things better when you have the one source of truth, and it's with the code, and then it generates everything else everywhere else. And so that's really nice.
We have one question from the web. Brian really wanted to be here tonight, but couldn't make it. He says, as containerization continues to gain traction, how will this impact Chocolatey? Will Chocolatey be used to install packages in a Microsoft container image, or do we know what a Microsoft container image will look like? Or do you, since you have this project, do you get to see that earlier, or?
No comment on the last one. With the yes, and so Chocolatey is, of course, it's very important when it comes to Docker and other things, because you need to have something that makes the installation of things super easy. And so being able to continue that when you have Windows containers is super important. What those Windows containers will look like, it's possible that a lot of those will be in Nano, or they'll be in something else. And Nano support will come later this year. It's no small undertaking, because it's a different, it's a lot of work to redo. There's a lot of rework that goes in. And once that's done, I think that'll be pretty nice.
So if we're looking forward to microservices, we should be looking at Nano first, and then the Docker integration, or?
I don't know.
No? Okay.
I don't know. Yeah, sure. Microservices is an overloaded term, so you can get that in a whole bunch of different ways.
Sure.
So
that's fair.
You can get microservices through code, talking to other bits of code. But
absolutely.
I definitely see Nano having a pretty big role in things as far as, kind of the future of, some Windows and like containerization. I just don't know where it plays. I've been talking to Jeffrey about some things that Chocolatey can do as it starts to build up for Nano. They're pretty kind of cool, like, as far as like compatibility type things. Except there's no MSI support. But there's ways to like unpack MSIs. So you can still get the support for MSI in a different way. So you still get the binaries there. It's just you didn't actually have to install, quote unquote, install the thing. It's definitely an interesting area.
For us, it's just been a really nice way to, since we're using Yum or whatever else for our Windows, for our Linux stuff, then it's been really nice for us for on the Windows side of things, because we just didn't have anything that did what Chocolatey does. And we plugged it into Puppet, and so then basically we can treat our Windows and our Linux systems the same way in terms of how we install packages. And then that's just made our life much, much easier. Now, we probably been using community packages in some places where we shouldn't have. And so we're gonna fix that. But for us, that's made that stuff a lot easier. Two, I've been challenging the Windows admins that work for me to get to where they never log into the Windows systems at all. And without something like this, it's really difficult to get to where they can do all the things they need to do. Because some of the, if you're running the community edition of Puppet, getting it to do some of the things in Windows you want it to do without chocolatey is pretty difficult.
Yeah, we've been challenging
You could say that
ourselves.
with Chef and other things as well.
You could say that was, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
in general, if you have Windows in your ecosystem and you're using open source tools to manage everything else, then you're going to run into problems because you're going to have to buy the enterprise edition of whatever it is to manage all your Windows hosts, where all the Linux stuff happens now.
So like what Jeff was saying, this line right here can be used on any of his operating systems.
Yeah.
It works on Windows, it works on RHEL, it works on Debian. Now, you start running into things where other things like Apache aren't named the same darn thing across package format.
Yeah, I mean, that's been one of the challenges. And then one of the other ones that we're working through is some of the web content management systems that we have so many different versions of exact things that we have to install that we're probably needing to get more into creating our own packages to do some of this stuff that we're doing because, for example, Sitecore has to have, like, each version of Sitecore has different dependencies. And so either we're going to end up having to write our own manifest for Sitecore or do something else like that. But, I mean, using the configuration management, we've been able to dump some things down from like 12 to 15 hours worth of work down to about an hour. And then especially once you have one of these manifests set up for something that actually works, you just copy it, change what you need to, and you're done. And that's probably been the biggest thing for us.
Do you guys do anything like Test Kitchen or Service Pack or Beaker or any of that fun stuff, like for infrastructure type testing?
I don't know that we've done that. For the Windows side of things, you mean?
Either side.
No, the automated testing part of all of our stuff, we're still improving. So, like I said before, it's pretty.
Testing is always.
Yeah, well.
Test first. Later.
Test Kitchen's worth every minute that you spend. Like, once you reach that realization, you're like, oh snap! Like, this is huge.
And there's a Puppet plugin for it too.
Okay, I'll look for it.
It's
after I finish the other things.
It's CM agnostic, as Steve Morawski likes to say.
Okay.
It's not something that Chef owns. It just has a lot of contributors that come from Chef.
Yeah, there's an Ansible plugin. I think there's we're working on one for Salt, or it works.
Test Kitchen, is that what we're
Test Kitchen, yeah.
Okay.
And it uses a Service Pack on the back end, right?
Yeah,
Or at least it used to.
it does. Its Service Spec is still supported completely. Chef's writing another thing called Inspect, which is very similar to Service Spec.
Service Pack is interesting, and it works on Windows thanks to Matt Rock and other people that are out in the community. Matt Rock's also a contributor to Chocolatey, works at Chef. So. I'm biased, I work at Puppet, so I like Puppet better. And I work on most of the features that folks use when they use Windows, so I definitely like Puppet. Other questions? All right. That's it.
Thank you.
I have stickers up here, by the way, and business cards. Feel free to come get a chocolatey sticker. I have the old versions too. Take all of those you want. They're the ones that look like this.
Sounds delicious.
Where'd you come up with the name chocolate?
I'll turn that back on for that. So I was on the NuGet team in 2000. I actually took it out of the slides. I should have left it in apparently. I was on the NuGet team. I was actually on the team that came before NuGet, which was the new team for Nubular, and that was gems for .NET. And I got onto the Nubular team, I don't know, early 2010, but I didn't really do anything at that time. But then we decided that Nubular, or New, as we were calling it, should, instead of trying to like build up this entire packaging framework, we should just piggyback up off of Ruby Gems, because Ruby Gems has a pretty good infrastructure. And so that particular project got super popular, and we had like a working code, the YouTube videos, and all that stuff within like 3 days. So we already had a good user experience going, and then Microsoft said, "Hey, we're working on this thing called Impact." And we looked at it, it was like, this is like where we want to go, like with some stuff. And of course, you know, then you don't have a dependency on Ruby. And Ruby on Windows, it's okay.
It's getting better every year.
It's sort of okay. It's getting better. Yeah. I'm spoken from a guy that runs basically his own version of RBM on Windows. Part of my day job. Yeah, so we said, hey, we should come and like work with you guys. And then they got renamed to NewPack. And NewPack turned out there was, I don't remember, Caltech or somebody had something called nucleic acid package. Is this something we should be concerned about? Scott Hansen was like, nah, it'll be fine. And then I get a call like a couple months later, hey, we gotta change the name. They're not happy, we gotta change the name. So then we changed the name. And we actually couldn't come up with any good options. And some community member said, hey, how about NuGet? It's like all these votes just got flipped because everybody's like, yep, that's the name. And so then we were joking that if we ever had a machine package repository, we'd call it chocolatey NuGet because the packages wouldn't be vanilla packages. Kind of suck.
Rock and roll.